street run red with my revenge. You can't fake apologies for everything you do. You can't repay the price that's on your head. The price that's on your head. When the sky comes down over this ghost town, you'll be first against the wall. When our guns all lie in the dead of night, you'll be first against the wall. Test me, you'll be first to take the fall. When the sky comes down over this ghost town, you'll be first against the wall. Scatter like the roach, like the insect that you are. Cowards always try to get away. No matter where you hide, I will hunt you down. You can't escape. You can't escape.
Hello, my pack, my tribe. Welcome to Howloween. Okay, to answer your question, Becca, she messaged me on Facebook about the band I was playing the first time around. Sorry about that. We were having some technical issues. The name of the song is The Howling. The band is called Within Temptation. The lead singer used to be with a band called Nightwish. They are a metal band from Scandinavia. They are actually pretty popular, although not as big here in America. So I hope that answers your question. The second track, the one that we just heard as my intro, is actually a band called Egypt Central, who's no longer together, and the name of that song is Ghost Town. Okay, so anyways. Sorry, had to do it. The show is called Howling After Dark, and tonight's episode is called Howloween. So there you have it. All right. If you would like to call into the show, this is how we do it. Since, well, that's because I listen to a lot of, she said on Facebook, he said, meaning her fiance Aaron, he has never heard of any of them. That is because I listen to a lot more obscure stuff than you guys do. So I don't listen to a lot of the, like we both listen to metal, but like the metal you listen to is more mainstream than the stuff I listen to, if that makes any sense. Anyhow, so the idea was, and sort of is, to add me on Facebook, GhostWolfJ, on Skype, and then we use Skype to call in. But because the app that I would be using to do that is not functioning properly at the moment, kind of can't do that. So I'm all on my own tonight. Sorry, getting a little distracted here. Let's see. Okay, so anyways, the whole thing about tonight's show and what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do part one, just me talking, and then when I come back for part two, I'm going to try and get the new Spreaker app to work correctly so it actually shows up on my website. Um, if that doesn't work, then I guess we're just SOL. But anyways, since I can't have callers in at the moment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some of our history here on this show, Howling After Dark. And it's kind of a long, convoluted history, if you will. Originally, when I first came up with the idea for this show, I was with another team. And I didn't really have it set up the way that I do now. It was on Spreaker originally, but I could only do 30 minutes at a time because that's their free service. And it didn't have any of the extra little goodies. And well, it wasn't really enough for me, so I kind of shopped around for other places to go, and I found this place called Going Beyond Radio, which is actually a great radio station. They have a lot of paranormal shows, and I was originally going to be on their network. However, that deal unfortunately fell through. And but while I was there, I was listening to the owner's show. He has a show called Beyond Radio, I think, or Going Beyond, or something to that effect. I don't recall off the top of my head. I have a shitty memory like that, so just bear with me. But anyways, this woman, I believe her name was actually Karen, but don't quote me, called in. She lived in Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania, mind you, near Philly. And she was having this problem in her home. Now, by the description, it sounded like a succubus, incubus type spirit infesting her home. And over, the past year or two at that point, she had been trying to get teams to come in and do something about it, or at least, figure out exactly what she's dealing with, and then go from there. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Some of the teams she dealt with were actually very serious about it. They tried to do it as professionally as they could, but unfortunately, a lot of them were new teams and didn't really have the experience under their belt to deal with what they were experiencing. Others were maybe a little bit more experienced, but they were kind of like the not give a shit types. One group in particular, prior to the investigation, showed up at her house and then before investigating went off to the bar before investigating. Which, that alone is, in my opinion, bullshit. And then she thought, my luck's turning. Things are getting better. Things are working for the best. Because finally she had gotten some serious heavy artillery type help, or so she thought. I don't know if she contacted him or he contacted her, but Ryan Ryan Buell from Paranormal State was coming to her home, and she thought, this is it. I'm finally going to get at least some answers, if not some help. That didn't happen. Mr. Ryan Buell, and keep in mind, this is before even the the whole like scamming his patrons out of their money for paranormal conventions around the country. This is before that whole fiasco. He goes to her home, is there for maybe 15 minutes. Hardly an investigation can be done in 15 minutes. And he comes out of there. He had her wait on out front. And he comes out, looks her dead in the eyes, and goes, "You're crazy." Jumps in his car and takes off. Now, if that were where the story ended, it would have been bad enough. Because to tell you the truth, she may have been crazy. I don't know. But there's one thing you never do as a paranormal investigator. Ever. Ever. You never tell a client they're fucking crazy. You never leave your client with a bad impression of you. Because everything we say and do, everything we say and do reflects on our whole community. So that alone had me pretty outraged at that point. But evidently, Ryan Buell is on friendly terms with Jonathan Zappis from Haunted Collector. And I believe he contacted her. And once again, she thought, great. I'm finally going to get some answers. I'm finally going to get some help. Nope. He did the same thing. Spent very little time there. Comes out, looks at her dead in her eyes, and says, "You're crazy." And then proceeds to tell her that he is going to have her blackballed from ever having an investigation in her home. Okay. Like I said, you never tell a client that they're crazy. You never tell them, you never talk down to them at all. That's just bad business. But nobody, I don't care if it's Jason Hawes, I don't care if it's Zach Bagans, I don't care if it's John Zappis, I don't care if Ed Warren himself rose from the dead. Nobody has the fucking right to blackball anybody from a paranormal investigation. Period. And so, on my first ever show, which was actually delayed because the whole deal with Going Beyond Radio fell through, and I ended up on another station called Utah Para Radio. But on my first show, I called them out. And I thought, maybe I went a little too overboard. calling them out because I went off. I called them out onto the carpet. I told them both that even if I have to go do it myself, I will investigate there, and they better hope to God I find nothing, because if I find out that she's actually got a problem, I'm going to tell the entire world not only what asshats they are, I'm going to tell them that they're fucking frauds. It should never be allowed in anyone's home. So I went off a little bit. I may have gone a little overboard. But no. The guys I worked with at Utah Para Radio assured me that they liked it. That everybody liked it. That they wanted more of that. And so since that day, I have become kind of well known for my rants. Because I don't hold back. I don't pull punches. And I'm very unapologetic about it all. Because the simple fact of the matter is I'm very passionate about the paranormal. More specifically, I'm passionate about the spirits that we interact with. Because, maybe I'm crazy. It could be. But I see it as my job to protect them. Because if I don't, who will? And that's part of the reason why I don't just assume that everything's negative. Because, sorry to tell you, take it for what it's worth. I've been doing this for a long time. But every spirit I've ever encountered, well, not every spirit I've ever encountered, but the greater majority of spirits I've encountered, let's say, have just wanted to communicate. And weren't really a threat to anybody. So, yeah, I take it very seriously. And so I called them out on it. And I don't care who you are. If you fuck up in our community, I'm going to call you out on it. And that's just how that particular cookie crumbles. And that was my first show. First ever. And probably, at least in my mind, one of the most memorable. Definitely. Because the thing about it is that it kind of launched my whole path in a lot of ways. Not only on the radio, but also in the way of like my vision of where I want my team to go and how I investigate. I mean, the way I investigate didn't change too much, but it did change a little bit. A little bit. And it was all a lot of it had to do with that first show, because it opened my eyes in a lot of ways. I'll say that. In any case, so that was probably one of the most memorable shows. And then, of course, always a hit. Always. I'm trying to get him back on the show now. My good friend from Scotland, Shaman Black Bear. He's hilarious. We always end up laughing our heads off every time he's on the show. He is so funny. I've had him on the show now like 2 or 3 times, I think. Just a great guy. And has very, very definite ideas about the paranormal. And we don't necessarily agree. on them, but I definitely appreciate his viewpoint, and so it just made for interesting uh, episode of Howling After Dark every time he's on. We could talk about nothing for an hour and a half, and it'd be one of the greatest shows ever. Um, I've had a few guests on the show. I'm looking to get more guests on my show. It's just, it's kind of hard right now because there's certain people I kind of don't know where I stand with them because of somewhat recent falling out, I guess you could say. Um, and I don't really want to push it, I guess. But regardless, every time I have a guest on the show, it's been excellent. Another really great guest. I've only had her on the show once, but she was absolutely awesome, and I'll never forget it. Um, I had an author on the show. Um, Her name is Nancy. Nancy. God, it's right on the tip of my tongue. I hate it when I do that. Let's see. Trying to find it. Nancy Red Star. Sorry, I knew it was Red something. I just couldn't remember what the last part of it was. Yes, Nancy Red Star. She is, I believe, Cherokee actually, and she wrote this book about how Native Americans, and not just natives, but all indigenous people everywhere, for as far back as written history goes, and before history can be remembered, actually, um, have had stories about visitors from other planets that we kind of had this friendly relationship with, and not. And her standpoint is she totally believes it. But the interesting thing is she doesn't write that way. She leaves it up to the reader to make up their own mind, which is absolutely fantastic. But I had her on the show. We got into this long conversation that went from like the Star Brothers, the Star Ancestors, and went from there to UFOs and even to Bigfoot and ghosts. And no, we didn't agree with each other on every viewpoint, but sometimes that's what makes a better show. And it's kind of a really cool thing when people that don't necessarily agree with each other can still be friendly and and kind of appreciate each other's viewpoints, even though they don't necessarily share them. But I did agree with her on quite a lot, actually. Um, when it comes to the whole Star Ancestors thing, I definitely agree with her. There's no doubt in my mind, actually. But, that's me. Um, hold on one sec. So, yeah, that was a great show. Um, I had a good friend of mine, Jose Amasquita II, on my show. He's from a group called HPI, Historical Paranormal Investigators. Great group. We've investigated with them a couple times now. Um, but I had him on the show, and it was probably one of my best shows ever, to be honest. And it was all about, kind of what their group does and how they're involved with TV and movies and stuff. They actually um, work as what do you call it? Technical advisors. They've worked as technical advisors on a few things, to make the ghost hunting and whatever production as realistic as possible. Um, rather than making us look like a bunch of goofs. We've got the technology right and everything, so I thought that was pretty awesome. And hold on, checking into our chat. Okay, so yeah, that was absolutely a fantastic show. Uh, and I don't know if I could call this one of my best shows, really. Um, as far as from a listener standpoint, but I feel that it was one of my best shows, definitely from a personal standpoint. I shall explain. Um, last year, for the first time ever, I found out that I have 3 sisters. I have this whole other family, basically, that I never knew before. And I found out about my father and how he passed away from cancer, which was unfortunate, but, in a lot of ways, I've gotten to feel very close to him, and I kind of feel like he's not really gone. Not like gone. And I kind of sort of proved that on a show that was all about EVPs, where I ended up doing a live EVP session, and my sister Lisa was actually listening, and our father was coming across my Spirit Box app, the SV1, on air, live. And he was saying things that only he would have known, which kind of confirmed for my sister that it was indeed him. And then That I don't even have the words to describe. I really don't. About what that meant to me on a personal level. I don't know. I haven't ever really been good at that kind of thing. As far as expressing how I feel a lot of the time. I mean, beyond, the obvious, I'm happy, I'm sad, blah, blah, blah. When it comes to the deeper things, I've never been good at that part. Um, but there you have it. But he came across a couple other times on different episodes too, so that was just awesome, unbelievable. Now, I would do shows playing EVPs after investigations. So, like let's say, since tonight's Saturday, normally we would be investigating on a Friday or Saturday. So let's say tonight I was doing an investigation and Monday is my show. So on Monday you would be hearing the EVPs from tonight's investigation if I were investigating tonight. And that's kind of how I do it, you know. And one of the coolest, personally, and actually I'm going to pull up this EVP because it's actually one of my favorites, because actually two of my favorites actually are from the same thing, but this is really the only one. Let's see if I still have it. That's not it. Hold on, let me see if I can't find it. Um, it's actually was a Christmas gift for my team one year, um, that I got. We went and investigated Brown Ella Cottage, which was an awesome investigation. Um, it's actually the second time I had ever been there. The first time was with my former team, and well, what happened there was there was a bunch of visual stuff. There was some audio stuff, but mainly the big thing that happened that night in particular was me and this lady that was there to hunt with us. We were down in the basement, and something was throwing rocks at us. And that was kind of the big deal that time. And then the second time, when I went back with my team, picking one highlight for that night is ridiculous because the whole night was kind of epic. At one point, I was actually having a conversation with the Chippewa Brave in his native tongue. And I'm not sure if that got recorded or not. I think it did, and the quality was just crappy because it was actually coming over an actual obelisk device. And one thing we found is unless you have some kind of buffering microphone connected, a lot of the time the obelisk device can make your digital recording sound kind of low quality. Let's see. Oh, don't tell me. I guess I don't have it anymore because I can't seem to find it. So we're going to have to skip that one. But I'll just tell you what it said. I have played it before on my show. What it said is, you hear me go, I was asking if we were in Ella's room and I had a digital recorder or something. It was either a digital recorder or the EMF detector laying on the bed. And I said, do you want me to take that off your bed? And you hear Class A EVP kind of smart ass go, now give me bread. Which, given the history of the place, kind of makes sense. It was kind of funny. But, yeah. Okay. And then, of course, there's the one at Alexander Commons, which is probably one of my favorite of all time. And unfortunately, we've only been there once. We've never gotten a hold of the owner, to go back or to even share our evidence. But we were there for less than 10 minutes. We were just getting going when this was captured. And I'm going to go ahead and play this for you now. Did anybody else see that?
Yes.
Did anybody else see that?
Yes.
I realize it's a whispering voice and therefore it's probably a little hard to hear. But what it actually says, I think, it's a whispering female voice that I believe is actually Anna Barber, that says, "Come and find me. I'm in the building." Did anybody else see that?
Yes.
Did anybody else see that?
Yes.
That's right after I say, did anybody else see that? Did anybody else see that?
Yes.
Did anybody else see that?
Yes.
So, yeah, that was definitely an awesome investigation. Things were happening right from the start, which was really cool. And then, of course, there's a myriad of investigations that we've done at the Mansfield Fire Museum. Oh, actually, there is one from Brownell Cottage. I think you can hear here.
The battery.
No, I'm okay.
I don't know.
It was just too many falls on there.
Here's this. I don't know if it's set up properly for you.
There you go. So,
That's me. Sorry.
what was I going to say?
If you're with us, please knock so we know that you're here.
Well, make any kind of sound just loud enough for us to hear it. Because we're going to leave this room. Okay,
We see that you're using your energy for the flashlight.
we get it. It's alright. Well, it's been nice talking to you, but we're going to move around a little bit. Talk to you soon. Alright, let's move on. Well, that's not the one I thought it was, but that one kind of illustrates a good point. Um, as you can hear there, that was actually at the end of the night, and we were once again in Elle's room. And, I think we were all kind of feeling, what's the word I'm looking for? Not exhausted, really, but kind of like drained at that point. And sometimes, and you'll know when, that's kind of when you've got to take a step back and say, okay, maybe that's enough for tonight. Because when you start to get tired to the point where you can't really think, it's probably time to call it a night. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, got about 10 seconds left, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with part 2 of tonight's show.